Good morning and welcome to PW Grosser's Environmental Echo, our monthly podcast. And today we've got as always, a terrific guest. We've got Rigoberto Burgueño. All right, so he's a professor and chair of the Department of Civil Engineering at SUNY Stony Brook. He's actually one of our first academic guests on the podcast, so we're really excited to have him. So with that, I also want to just mention our other guest is as I've called him, my repeat offenders, Bryan Grogan, our senior VP of engineering, who heads up that business unit for us back at PW Grosser. But before we get into this and our topic today, which is going to be engineering and education, I do want to let our listeners know, if you guys do want to reach us, the best way to get a hold of us, that would be our website, www.pwgrosser.com/podcast. If you guys have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, topics, or ideas for different guests, we welcome them all. We'd love to hear from you. So I do want to welcome Rigoberto and Bryan. So before we get into this, Rigoberto, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got here?
Well, thank you. First of all, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. My first time doing a podcast, so it's quite an interesting experience. Thank you, I appreciate it. I have been at Stony Brook now for about, my fifth year? I came here in 2018. As you mentioned, I'm the professor in civil engineering and also the chair of the civil engineering at Stony Brook University. And my background is as a researcher and an academic is in structural engineering. So even not an environmental engineering, but here my role is to guide a department which includes the field of environmental engineering as part of the civil engineering discipline. My academic background, as I said, is in structures. I'm particularly interested in developing new materials and new structural forms that can perform more efficiently and safely, whether in innovative, cost-effective ways or under extreme hazards. At Stony Brook, my goal is to continue growing a relatively new department, established in 2012, and we are trying to continue that growth that I was started by initiative to increase the training in civil engineering in Long Island and the state of New York, and we are excited to continue that growth and in civil engineering and in an innovative, modern way.
Outstanding, Bryan. A little bit about what about you?
I've been now here with PW Grosser for roughly about almost 10 years now, I think. I am actually a Stony Brook alumni, I shocked Rigoberto, and I showed up and had some knowledge of the campus and was able to follow directions well. I had a background in mechanical engineering from Stony Brook, and I graduated in 2006 prior to the inception of the civil engineering program, which it was a very interesting field at the time for mechanical, and some of the same principles apply. But that's basically, kind of the gist about me.
All right. Well, and I did forget to introduce myself when we started this podcast. I'm Paul Boyce, the CEO and president of PW Grosser, and your host for the podcast. A little bit about me. I'm also a SUNY grad. I went to University of Buffalo, obviously out in Buffalo, where I got a degree in civil engineering a very long time ago, and I specialize in environmental engineering primarily. I got a master's at Polytech, which is now part of NYU in New York City. That was also a very long time ago, but it's been put to good use since I obtained both degrees. So can't speak highly enough about the SUNY system and the engineering programs there, and we're glad to have you here today, Rigoberto. And I know the civil engineering program, as you said, at SUNY Stony Brook is, I'm not going to say it's relatively new anymore, but it's a newer program, and we are the benefits, being a Long Island-based firm, of having some of those graduates come on board and work with us now. So that said, let's get into our discussion today. All right. So, Rigoberto, what do you see? What kind of impacts have you seen regarding the emphasis on STEM in high schools on incoming engineering students?
Well, I think that the impact is difficult to assess, to be honest. But I think that we do see students who are really, really well informed. Sometimes we do activities in class, or we discuss, we're doing activity of constructing bridges out of popsicles, or talking about some engineering disaster and lessons that we have learned. And I find out that the entire class already knows about this. So that means that our STEM basic education is working. They have been exposed to these topics. They're well aware, and they're ready to engage in deeper conversations. So I think that it works. I wish that having teenager children, I wish that it was taken more, even broader students, or reaching a broader population of our K-12 students, because I think it does make a difference when students get access to STEM education in their K-12 school.
Do you think it's really getting an impact in terms of attracting numbers to the programs, not just at SUNY, but say across the nation in terms of engineering schools?
I think so. I think that exposure at an early age is key to for students to think of engineering as a career, as a profession, so that they're not afraid of the fields, and that it creates that curiosity. I think that's essential. So I absolutely think it's the right way to go.
Are we doing enough, right, at say the high school, maybe middle school levels? I'll give you a little bit of background. My wife's a school teacher, 6th grade math in the middle school, Comac, and she just had a STEM night, where they had all different ages of kids come in, and she did an engineering project, as you mentioned, like the popsicle sticks with the bridge. She did the toothpicks and marshmallows type of structures. Put something together where it can support a textbook or something like that. It was one of the more enticing and exciting events at the STEM night, she said, that they had. So she had, they weren't just eating the marshmallows, the kids. They were actually using them to do something. So are we doing enough?
I cannot gauge that from the university side, from my job as a professor. I think I have a better perspective as a parent of school-age kids who range from 6th grade to 11th grade, and I would think no. And the reason is because when I ask my children, who I guess I kind of influence them to make the choices in taking those electives when they have the opportunity in middle school to start taking STEM type classes, which are offered. So the options are there. But I don't see that enough children are making those choices. Sometimes I feel that if they don't have the proper mentoring, they may not take those opportunities. So the opportunities, I believe, are there. But I think that there has to be more community awareness of the importance of our children to be taking advantage of those courses, not being afraid of the fact that they may be challenging, and therefore, if they take these classes, I think that then they will learn. And even if they realize that this is not what they like, I think that's a win-win. But when I ask them how many are enrolled, how many children are enrolled, it's usually a few, and especially when it comes to diversity, which is an area that becomes even more difficult when it with STEM courses, that there's not a lot of diversity in this type of classes.
I couldn't agree with you more. And Bryan, you're a parent.
Yeah, I'm a parent of
you got young kids,
elementary and middle school. So again, my school district is a little different. We have robotics clubs that both of my older daughters have gone through. My older daughter that's in 7th grade had a really good technology teacher, kind of like the one that I had back in high school. They actually made a scale model of a house. He had her draw up a floor plan and cut out foam and make them an actual model of it. They've done the marshmallow and toothpick kind of thing.
All right.
So there are those opportunities, and I think sometimes they need to be maybe pushed a little harder, or if you get the right person there, it goes really well. I mean, my own personal experience back in high school, I had a really great technology teacher, introduced me to basically the precursor to AutoCAD. I ended up teaching the course when he went out on medical leave as a senior in high school, because the sub didn't know, and I knew enough from the prior year, and basically I was the one running around teaching the class in high school. So it was definitely, but that was something that I asked, he said, yeah, sure, go ahead, do it. And, you need to have that exposure, where some school districts may not. And that's something that even just simple robotics clubs, if they start with those little sets, they learn, and then they can bring it home And then that's one of the, things that my daughter was asking for Christmas was, can I get the robot? And now plays with it on a routine basis and understands it. So, yeah, I think that exposure is there. And I think, like Rigoberto said, trying to push it more to the community awareness side to get people enthused about it is something that definitely helps.
Again, agree. So, next topic, what do you see as the importance of preparing students in computational skills, say, beyond the likes of Microsoft Office or AutoCAD? What's going to get these guys and gals to be successful with their careers in engineering?
This is something that I think is very important. We're obviously we see it all around us. It's a huge shift in the way our society functions, the tools that we use, both as regular folks and as professionals, and we need to be versed and competitive in training students in not just being the users, but understanding the power of these tools. So learning back in the days to say that you knew a spreadsheet or a word processing program was considered a computer skill. Now that's essential. Our elementary school children can do that. Thankfully, that's great. We need to train our college, our high school students to beyond that. And that means getting ready for the world that AI is going to bring to us, the world of augmented reality and all these tools that we hear about. And sometimes they seem foreign, and maybe this is something that are not to concern us, but that's the world that we already live in. And I think that we need to be preparing our children, our students, and professionals to be participants in the development and control of that future, and not just waiting to be users and see who's going to use it. And that's regardless of the discipline. So obviously I'm in a civil engineering field, and those type of, when we think computing, we think that that's for computer engineers or software engineers. But I think now that knowledge goes beyond those disciplines, and it has to reach to a certain competence level to all areas, including the high school level, that everyone should understand what that is and what are the basic knowledge behind it.
Are you guys offering any courses in, like, I don't know, AI? You mentioned the augmented reality or virtual reality type stuff. We're using drones in our office and a whole bunch of other fun and exciting things in the engineering field. But do you guys actually have any hands-on training as part of the curriculum?
We do. We are starting to slowly introduce these courses. We have the basic computer programming courses that have been engineering for many years, and we are now introducing courses in topics such as introduction to artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, and things of that nature at the undergraduate level, like sophomore, junior level. They can start taking this, and then at the graduate level, there are even more options to go beyond that.
Bryan, I think we got to get back to school.
Yeah, I know, really.
Holy cow.
No, and it does apply across the board. I mean, we see things with like augmented reality or virtual reality, and we have the fly-throughs that a lot of these architectural firms will create. And, we're doing 4D modeling on projects and BIM for the building information management, where, you're walking through the building as you're built before it's even built and checking for conflicts between drawings. And, even as a civil engineer, you need, your files are going into these, so you need to kind of understand the whole grasp of everything. And you see the videos of guys doing inspections where they can scan a QR code and it, on their phone, pulls up the full 3D view of the plan while you're looking at it, and you can move it around and see it. And it's, it's definitely something we need some more exposure to, because again, it's kind of one of these things of sometimes if you're not in it, it's too late. And then you're getting pulled into it and trying to learn it on the fly, under the gun. So,
and I think that to me the key for, obviously some of these softwares are created by software engineers, computer scientists, but I believe that innovations start when someone understands the disciplinary knowledge. For example, if someone is in construction and is a construction engineer and also understands how some of this software is created or what are the capabilities and so on, then they can, maybe they're not going to be the developers of the software, but then they can communicate very efficiently with the software developers and say, this is the tool that we need because this is what we need in the job. And I understand how this tool is created. And I think this is how some really cool innovations can originate.
Well, and not to go too far off topic, but I've been seeing a lot of this in, social media, on the internet, and in the newspaper even. It's chatbots, right? Talk about the AI and all that stuff, and how they're writing papers now for college level stuff. I don't know if it's in the engineering world yet, but any opinions on chatbots?
I have not explored it myself, but when I told my high school son that his physics problem could be solved by chatbots, he did kind of get excited about it. I guess you can do it. I think that engineering should not be engineering discipline is as you well know, is not just plugging the numbers into an equation and getting some solution. It's about understanding when the equation works, when it doesn't work, and what type of judgment you need to make on what the results that you obtain, what do they mean. I believe at the moment this goes beyond what these AI tools do. Nonetheless, I think it stresses the fact that what we should be training students to, when we train engineers, to understand the why of what we're doing. And I tell them, when I teach it to them, I say, guys, we are doing these equations, and that's all nice, but believe me, the computer can solve these equations much more efficiently and correctly than you can. You need to understand why these equations work, when do they not work, and that's the key. And I think that this is where our engineers will continue to be needed in spite of these advancements.
Well, I'll say this, Bryan. The other day I was thinking about the chatbots, right? I didn't have time to write something, and it was also something I really wasn't interested in writing. I'm like, I wonder if we could write this proposal for me.
Yeah.
I was going to go find Ed, our marketing guy, and say, hey, Ed, track this down and see if I don't know if it could, but it was just, it was on my mind. Like, gosh, I just don't have time, and I'm not in the mood. And wouldn't it be nice if...
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I already read an article that there was some high school in Florida that somebody was already using chatbots to write a full-on essay. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I think there, again, it may be another tool in the basket at some point, but as Rigoberto pointed out, you kind of need to understand why you're doing what you're doing without getting, I'll say, too theoretical. I mean, I remember back we had one HVAC related problem in a thermodynamics class, and he was using linseed oil for something, and like this heat exchanger came back, and we couldn't figure it out. Like, it was so ridiculously oversized and large that we called a company to help us. And the guy called back a day later and was like, this thing's the size of a football field, right? And we're like, well, no. But we understood then, we figured out why it was so big. So when we went back to the professor with the answer, he was like, okay, well, this is why you then wouldn't do this. And, but you need to have that understanding of like why certain things don't work and why they do work, or like you said, when to apply the right equation or not. And you learn that a lot sometimes by more hands-on stuff, or, we learned in mechanical, I did a lot of machine design and manufacturing. So you learned it by working in the machine shop, looking at a drawing, and then basically doing the old school kind of Grumman mentality. Put it together first, then design it. Because if you can't put it together, you can't really design it. So then they want to know how you're going to put that screw in when this piece is here, and doing that whole assembly process. So it's definitely, again, maybe another tool in the toolbox. But, we can't just rely on it, because then we're going to end up in a spot where the computer's telling us everything. And
yeah, but I like your answer. I do agree that it's going to be another tool in the toolbox. We need to learn how to use it and how to take advantage of it, because why not? We have all access to this information. But I think it's almost the same every time a new tool arrives, whether it's a transition from the slide ruler to the calculator, from the calculator to the computer. Every time that a more powerful tool arrives, there's a tendency to believe that it's going to solve all of our problems. And as you well know, it just requires that you as an engineer, that you use your judgment, your understanding as to what does the answer mean, right? The good old basic training, you get an answer, and then you have to question, does that answer make sense?
Yep.
And I think that this is where this will be interesting to see how it evolves.
All right. Well, another question for you. Can you explain the value of research and education for of the future engineers from the classroom to student experiences?
I think that research is an essential part of the job of universities. Stony Brook is a research university. We are basically have a very active graduate research program, and many of our undergraduates are involved in research. And I think research has two roles. As faculty who are researchers are able to bring the knowledge, state-of-the-art knowledge to the classroom, and they're passionate about their discipline. For students, both at the undergraduate level and even at the graduate level, I think it exposes them to a different type of training. Most classes, you go, you sit in your seat, listen to some information that is hundreds of years old, and then you do some homework, take a test, and after doing that assignment, it's over. Whether you got it right, partially right, you got some points off, but it's done. In research, students are involved to an open-ended challenge that is not over at the end of the period or at the end of the week, because the assignment is a little bit more long range. You commit to it. You commit to solve a certain problem that was handed to you by an advisor. There's a certain belief, right? That's from the scientific method, that there's a solution to this. We're going to find this. So I think that is a very different type of training and thinking that is transformative for students. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be researchers as a career. It's just a different type of training that I believe is important as part of training professionals.
Well, I think it's important even from what we do. Half the times we got to go and, I'm not saying we turn everything into a research project, but, just getting people able to understand, what the process is and how to go about finding the information you need or coming up with the information you need. Sometimes I have, guys and gals that are spinning their wheels and running in circles trying to figure it out. So I think it's just as important. All right. Interesting, I failed to mention, a couple weeks ago, it was a Friday afternoon or evening, we had about 15 Stony Brook students come to our office.
Oh, cool.
All right, for a roundtable on just the engineering profession, the industry, and the career. So we had Stony Brook students from freshman up to senior from the civil engineering department, and really good group of engaging students. Most of them had a lot of good questions, multiple questions. It was a Friday night. Started about 5:15, and we were there till after 7. And we gave them pizza, so it didn't.
That always works.
Didn't hurt to attract them, but we had probably about 15 students, and it was a good mix, and it was more diverse than I expected. There was a couple of girls there, which is always the case in engineering, but it wasn't all just they all didn't look alike. You know what I mean? It was a pretty good diverse group. So I was really, really impressed to see that with Stony Brook.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you for having them.
No, it was great. And another thing that we often get involved with is some of the projects that the seniors undertake. So my next question is regarding the senior design capstone project. How's it different now than it was in years past? How's that evolved?
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit for those listening. Most engineering programs require, or because of accreditation requirement, most engineering programs have a course before graduation, a class which is an experiential learning experience, something that allows those engineers or those engineers to be engineers to have a project that is close to a real life situation before they graduate and face the real world. So it's either called a capstone design or a senior design course. We have a 2-semester sequence, which is a senior design class. In prior years, these projects are realistic civil engineering projects. In previous years, they have been sponsored by industry, in which we call out to partners of the department to help us identify projects that may be solved by our students in a group arrangement. And industry, of course, tries to trim the problem off so that it's manageable within the time frame of the course, and then they volunteer assistance from their staff to guide the students. and the students work on this for over 2 semesters and provide solutions to the upgrading of a rail platform or the design of a water treatment plant, things of this nature. We changed things a little bit this year, in which we chose as the senior project for the students to conduct the preliminary design of a new building being planned on campus. It's a new research building, and what we did is, I said, we broke the class in teams, and each team has disciplinary roles within the civil engineering expertise. So structural, geotechnical, environmental, transportation, stormwater systems.
How do we get involved?
and therefore we said, okay, each team, we have 6 teams. You need to come up with a preliminary design for this building, as if each team was a firm. So they came up with even firm names and logos for their firms, and there's a project manager and there's technical specialists in these areas that I mentioned. And they've been working on this in September. We still have, we're lucky to have support from the local industry, who are helping us to come in and meet the students twice a semester to provide feedback and conversations, because from the university we have faculty who are overseeing the work that in the different technical areas, but we're academics and we are not working on an everyday basis in practice. So we want students to have different perspectives, the perspective of the professors, and as well as the perspective of practicing professionals. So we have practicing professionals in the different areas come in, meet with the students, and give them feedback on what they're doing. And as well, we have guest seminars from practicing engineers to discuss topics of professional practice, ethics, permitting. Ryan came and talked to us about environmental permitted and project management, etc. So things that will not be typical in an engineering curriculum, where we're talking about theory and equations and all that other stuff.
You summed it up nicely. You're taking it from theory to practice. That's
correct.
And that's, those kids, they need that, or those students. Sometimes they're not just kids. They do need to get a dose of that. And Brian, mentioned our involvement.
It's been a pleasure. I've myself, as well as a couple other members of the firm, over the last probably 3 years or so, have been involved with the prior senior design process where we gave out projects, we met with the students, we kind of went back and forth with them, and we've been involved even in this more recent one, which is a little bit of a different spin, but equally I think is as good. I mean, the students really, we did sit down with them. I think we had an hour with each one, kind of one-on-one. They all had really good questions. You could tell they were thinking it through. So it's definitely nice to get that hands-on approach. It's very different than when I went to school in my senior design. Mm-hmm. But I think it's an interesting thing. It gets them exposed to more what's going to happen when they graduate. If they graduate and get into the industry, it's a little bit, this is really giving them a real good look at what real life looks like. I did come in and go over as a guest seminar speaker for SECRA related stuff, which again is a topic that I think Rigoberto indicated they don't really teach. But again, it's incredibly important to understand how all that works. I've done it before where I spoke at another friend, an attorney friend that teaches environmental law. Same kind of thing as to what's the real world implications of environmental law on things and what's happening and how does it apply. It's definitely interesting. And I'm happy to be a part of, kind of shaping, some new students. And it's always a benefit for us to get to see some faces and names. And, we've seen then a couple of those resumes come back across our desk.
You never know.
And like Paul said earlier, we routinely hire, I think, Stony Brook graduates. We have interns that are, and then I think they're junior year. And we've, like I said, we've hired a couple that have graduated right out of Stony Brook that we've had some experience with while they were kind of going through the program. So it's definitely a good thing for us.
That's leading me to my next topic, Brian, internships. So at SUNY Stony Brook, what do you guys do to encourage or help students get internships? Do you have a program for that? Internships
are very important, and I would say about 40, if not 50% of our students at least have internships by the time they graduate. We we do two things we certainly encourage the internships. We try to bring industry as guest speakers to senior design course. We have other opportunities in which we call it undergraduate seminars, where we invite industry to come in as panelists and talk about their opportunities. And then Stony Brook has a career center who organizes twice a year career fairs. That is not only for permanent jobs, but as internships as well. So the students attend those regularly, and we are fortunate that we have many firms in the area that are including PWG who are always there. And I think that they're obviously well publicized, and we know that our students are always available, and we try to make sure that we don't schedule an exam or something like this at the time where the career fair is, because everyone is aware when it's going to happen.
Keep those interns coming. Let me tell you, they're fantastic. We like working with them. We like giving the experience and the opportunity to see what the industry and the profession's all about. And, oftentimes, as Bryan said, we will find some that will stick around and end up being a full-time employee, and who knows where they can end up.
Yes.
So along those lines, what about like the FE exam and encouraging, licensing and whatnot? Do you guys advocate to take that exam before they get out of school, or?
Absolutely. We talk about the path to professional licensures, the importance of the FE exam. Excuse me. All of our courses are aimed at providing the knowledge that is going to be represented in the exam. And the path to licensure is discussed at many levels, both in our classes, in our undergraduate advising sessions, and then our student chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers. They are very active in inviting speakers to talk about professional licensure. We encourage in these events for them to take the fundamental exams early so that they can get it out of the way. I would say about a quarter of our students do so, and they are successful in this exam. But they're well aware of it, and we do encourage it. We make them realize the importance of that step.
No, and that's definitely something that mindset has changed since I was at Stony Brook. I mean, I found out about it, that test, for the first time during finals week. When one of my friends was like, hey, I signed up to take this other test, we should all do it. And we all looked at him like, what are you, nuts? Like, we're in the middle of finals week, the test is next week, like, we're never going to take this thing. Most of us had never even heard of it. Even at that time, I think now, like, our professors, I think we had two that were licensed professional engineers that had, I'll say, some prior real-world kind of work experience, aside from kind of just the pure academic and research side of things, which, again, is fine. But when you're talking about professional licensure, it's a little bit different. And I think now there's, especially in civil engineering, I think almost every professor is a licensed PE now, almost.
Well, no, and I wish, I'm sorry I wish that was the case, but in case someone of our listeners goes and checks our website, says, wait a second, that's not true. Unfortunately, we're not, but we're trying to address it. You're absolutely right that there's, of course, not only is important that if we go tell our students, you should get your license, and their faculty doesn't have the license, it carries less weight. So we should lead by example. But there is a challenge in academia in that as a research university, our recruiting for faculty is driven by our goal to be innovators in our discipline. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that faculty who are superstars, they're stellars in creating some amazing new knowledge. Sometimes this means that they have dedicated all their career at perfecting that craft and their knowledge, and they have not been in practice. And typically, to get a job in academia, if you, as you well know, one of the needs to become a professional engineer is to practice for a number of years, and then sit for the exam. But you need to be practicing for a number of years. It's very difficult to be hired as an academic after you have left the research field for 2-4 years, because you you go cold in the process of publish and perish kind of thing. And this is a challenge, but we are trying to address it by encouraging our faculty with some carrots to take a little bit of time from their academic duties to pursue this certification, which I think is important.
I agree, and just a little bit brief on my experience with it. I did take it my final semester in Buffalo, as I mentioned, SUNY. I knew well about it. I'm a third-generation PE. My grandfather, my father, so I had no excuse. And there was also a student chapter of the National Society of Professional Engineers there that offered review courses and everything to take it. And, any of our listeners, if you guys are students and thinking about it, I strongly encourage you to take it while this material is fresh in your minds, like at the very end of school here. The FE is the fundamentals of engineering. That is like the calculus, the differential equations, the thermodynamics, the electrical theory stuff that you may not have a whole lot of, experience with while you're practicing, but it's important to know this stuff regardless. So anyone that's listening, if you're thinking about it, take it sooner than later. All right. Next topic, the master's degree at SUNY. Do you guys have a master's, an MS for civil engineering?
Yes, we do. We do, and I'm happy to say that is growing. It's a 30-credit master's degree. It's customizable. Students typically who pursue a master's degree means that they have found a sub-area of civil engineering where they want to get further knowledge. Civil engineering is so broad that it's difficult to have a lot of depth in the different areas. So the master's degrees allows our students to choose that path. So at the moment, our program has about 20 master's students, and they range their specialty of study, across the field, the sub-disciplines: environmental, structural, geotechnical. One of the paths to the master's degree that is becoming popular with our undergraduate students is that we have an accelerated master's option. So basically, for students who are performing very well, they can start taking some of their graduate courses in their senior year, and basically they double count. They double count as part of their bachelor's degree, and if they stay at Stony Brook, some up to 6 credits count towards a master. So then they can finish their master's degree in 1 more year. So essentially, instead of a 4-year bachelor's, they stay a little bit longer, and in 5 years they graduate with a master's degree. So it's working very well for my students because most of them they take an internship in their junior, senior years, then they do their master's, and then by that time they have good technical depth as well as experience to start their jobs.
Oh wow! So we got 20. So you said 20 structural, geotech. Is there anything like maybe transportation or environmental? Anyone interested in that type?
Well, of course, yeah. This is 20. It's across the board. So we have it represents the expertise of our faculty, environmental. Which is mostly water quality, water resources, coastal engineering, hydraulics, structural, geotechnical, transportation, particularly issues with smart cities and mobility.
Oh, wow. Some good stuff there, Bryan.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Keep your eyes peeled.
Yep.
All right. Last question I have for you, Rigoberto. The alumni from the civil engineering department. I know that it's only been around for a few years. Have you been keeping in touch with any of these guys and gals that have graduated and how they're doing?
We do, and we are happy to say that they're doing quite well, and we do stay in touch with them. And of course, it's normal that sometimes it's difficult because their email changes, but we do stay in touch with a fair amount of them. We try to get them involved in our on-campus activities in the area. They come and visit us. It's very rewarding to see them at these career fairs that I mentioned, that they are now in the firms that are recruiting, and they come to these career fair events, and they are able to engage with our students and reconnect. So we are very happy the way that our students are doing, and I think that the population of alumni is growing. So
it's got to grow. Yeah,
quite happy with that.
Good.
We look forward to start creating events that will start engaging the alumni. Maybe an alumni association or group in the near future. I think that we are reaching the limit that might be possible.
Well, I will say with Buffalo, it's an 8-hour drive from where I live, so I don't get back to the campus at all. But there are local events, chapters like New York City. That's a big one with UB, and every year I do send a check and everything to support the engineering department. What about you, Bryan? Any involvement with the?
I mean, I really just been in the last couple of years. Alumni was a little bit of a different thing back when I was there. I was a commuter student, so I wasn't as engaged. And I think I got my first phone call looking for money the day after I graduated. So I kind of said, I haven't started a job yet. How about, hold off for a little bit. But no, I mean, the last couple of years, it's been good to kind of get back and see people and kind of give back and, kind of now share some of the knowledge that I now have. With the new students. And granted, I was a mechanical engineer by degree, but I now play a civil engineer in this role, and obviously it's it kind of just teaches you to learn one thing to the next, and now I can share some knowledge with the new students coming out, which is kind of rewarding. So
I would just like to say that, of course, we're interested in growing our alumni interactions, not just because we want to ask, not because we want to ask them for money. They do get back in many ways. They come back as speakers. They come back to help us with roundtables, to help our students understand the transition from the classroom to practice. They come to support activities of outreach, and all of that is very important. So we are interested in creating that community that supports the growth of the department and the university. Is not the dollars that matters.
That's good to hear, and that's I wish with my Buffalo stuff it was, like I said, it wasn't so far away and I could go and talk to the students, but maybe you can do it virtually now. I got to figure that out. Yeah. So Rigoberto, to wrap it up, is there anything we didn't cover that you want to mention before we sign off for the day?
Well, no, I think there's so many things that we can talk about, and they're all interesting. I just very appreciative of the opportunity to share what we're doing at Stony Brook, and to a broad understanding of the value of engineering, both within our profession and our community, is important so that we can continue to do things better.
Well, we're glad to have you today, and we appreciate your time. I know you got a busy schedule, and as school's in session right now, actually it's President's Week, so I know some schools are. You're open.
We're open. We're open.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, Bryan. Anything you want to add before we sign off? All right. Well, that's it. I just want to thank our listeners. This is Environmental Echo by PW Grocer. I'm Paul Boyce, your host, who is also president and CEO of PWGC. And to our listeners, again, thank you for sharing your time with us. And if you need to get a hold of us, www.pwgrocer.com/podcast. Thank you for joining us on this episode of PWGC's Environmental Echo. You can download and listen to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or by visiting our website, www.pwgrocer.com/podcast. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode.